Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, I talk with the inaugural head coach of the Delaware University women's hockey program, Allison Coomey. We discuss her plans to start the Blue Hen program in 2025, including her plans for the coaching staff, her recruiting strategy, and what she is looking for when she forms the team. This was an awesome conversation with Allison, so please enjoy. Introducing the Champs App messaging tool. Champs App messaging is the fastest, easy way to send error-free messages to coaches. The Champs App messaging tool ensures the coach's name, email, and school are correct without the need to look online and find each coach's contact information. With the Champs App messaging tool, you can choose from a variety of email templates to send. For example, one template informs coaches about upcoming events or tournaments, and another lets a coach know about new videos added to your Champs App profile. Each template automatically populates the message with the coach's name and school and inserts personal information from your Champs App profile. This way, you can be sure the emails do not have errors. Personalize each message further to make it uniquely yours. Experience the convenience of the Champs App messaging tool yourself by logging into your Champs App account. For a limited time, we are offering the Champs App messaging tool at a low introductory price for an annual subscription. As we add more amazing features to the messaging tool over the coming weeks and months, these new features will be included in your annual subscription. So get started today by logging into your Champs App account to try out the new Champs App messaging tool and easily send error-free emails to coaches. Subscribe today before the price goes up. I'm very excited to have back on the podcast Allison Coomey, who is the head coach of the newest D1 women's hockey program at Delaware University, which will begin play in the fall of 2025. Originally from Baldwinsville, New York, just outside Syracuse, Allison was a two-sport athlete at Niagara University. Since then, she has had a lengthy coaching career in both the D1 and D3 hockey levels, with stops at Connecticut College, Plattsburgh, Boston University, and the Penn State Nittany Lions. She has now been tasked with starting the Blue Hens program from scratch, and she's here to talk about how she will be doing that. So welcome back, Allison. How have you been?
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Crazy month for you, I'm assuming, since the announcement. But before we get into Delaware and all that stuff, maybe we just talk about, a little thumbnail sketch on your background. Obviously, folks can go back and listen to episode 12 when you were originally on. We went into great detail of you playing multiple sports, hockey and lacrosse, and then your coaching career. But maybe just give folks a little background on you just so that they're caught up to speed.
Yeah, like you said, went to school, went to Niagara after growing up in Syracuse. Played lacrosse in high school and soccer. Lacrosse was, I was probably a better lacrosse player, to be honest. So when I went to college, was able to play both with my twin sister, which was pretty cool. A really neat story about all of this is I was part of the first program at Niagara. And so to be able to do what I'm doing now with that history, I think is pretty special. But yeah, went to school for education about, halfway through my college career, really fell in love with coaching, working our camps in the summer, and then yeah, kind of took it from there. But first stop was at Connecticut College. I went to for a year. I was trying to get my master's. Went to Plattsburgh after that for a year. Went back to Niagara to coach, which was awesome to be part of the seeing it from the other side. And then spent 9 great years at BU and 7 great years at Penn State. So really fortunate to have the head coaches I worked for were awesome, all in their own way. So I learned a lot from the head coaches I worked with.
Yeah, and I just noticed that Kristen Steele, who's the current head coach at Connecticut College, was also your head coach 20-something years ago, around 20 years ago.
She was my assistant. Yep.
Yeah,
We go way back.
that's pretty amazing that she's been there so long at Connecticut College. All right, so before we get to Delaware, I do have some questions about your time at Penn State since we last spoke. So first of all, congratulations on winning back-to-back CHA conference titles. Pretty amazing. What was it like actually going to the tournament the last couple of years?
Oh, it was awesome, especially for a program that, we're so fortunate at Penn State to have the resources we had, and couldn't really get over the hump for a while. And this was prior to us coming. And then for the 5 years when Jeff and I, the two of us, because we were both in it together when he hired me, just took a while to kind of get over that hump. And, really important, piece to that was getting the right people in. And so, and knowing what it took to win a championship and those day-to-day habits, all of those things, were able to get us there. So it was really special. I think for the university, it was special, just to see where the program was and where it had gone. But really happy for the student athletes we work with every day to be able to do that and accomplish that.
And talk about how important Tessa Janicki was to your team. I mean, she was by far your leading scorer. She was amazing, playing for USA Hockey at the under-18s, and also I believe she's been playing on the national team. Obviously, an incredible player, but I mean, she pretty much carried your team quite far.
Yeah, I mean, she was a great, obviously a great asset. So much skill. Such a physical player, like always brought that intensity. And I think, when you have players that come to work every day, it's hard to not work as hard as they are, right? Because you want to emulate that. But overall, like just a really good team player. And when you have players like that as well, like, other people gravitate to that. So, she made people around her better, just by her work ethic and her ability to get people the puck. She is a goal scorer, but she had way more assists than goals this year. And, that's just a testament to her ability. And then, the people she played with as well. She had great teammates around her.
Yeah. And so what was also phenomenal about this past season is that you won the CHA, but you also lost your captain and your best player to the transfer portal. I was just, been a lot of conversations, I'm sure, especially at the coaching level, about the transfer portal, and obviously it's great for players to have choices and things like that. But I'm just wondering, you've been on the kind of the wrong end of, let's just say, the transfer portal. I'm just wondering what your perspective is on how the transfer portal works and how teams can be affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, we lost, not only to the transfer portal, but to graduation, we lost about 80% of our scoring last year. So it just changes the dynamic. And, I think about it when on the men's side, when players go to the NHL, they leave college early. The men have an ability to just grab players where we don't. And so it does make it hard, I think, to a certain extent. Obviously, you want players that want to be in your program and want to win, for your program. But everyone has, their own agenda, right? So it just makes college sports so much more interesting now because of that. But what was great to see is when we did lose those players, our freshmen stepped up. So the development piece of working with the current team that we had, and for those players to step up and actually take over those roles in our scoring, we did great this year because we had that, because we had players that were able to step up when in the past they may not have had those roles.
Gotcha. So there's also, kudos to you and the coaching staff on the recruiting side of things, of getting players that were ready to step in already, early on in their career. So obviously that worked well. And we're going to get back to the transfer portal a little bit later on, because maybe you'll be on the other side of things as it comes to Delaware, as we get to that part of recruiting for Delaware. All right, so let's just talk about getting the job at Delaware. So I wasn't too surprised. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I'm just curious, when did you start conversations with Delaware about getting the job?
Around December, they had reached out and just said, we're gonna, obviously we were in the middle of our season at that point. So they just reached out and expressed interest and said that, they would follow up once season was kind of coming to an end, and have more conversation. But I kind of knew a little bit, obviously, about Delaware prior to, so and learned a great deal about just the people in the department, which was I think really important to the decision to go.
All right, you want to expand on that? So I know you already had a connection to Delaware, so you want to share with folks with what you're referring to?
Yeah, so my fiance, Kelly Lawrence, she got the job at Delaware last year, in November, to coach women's soccer here. And so I knew a little bit. I had gone with her on her interview, so met some people at that point. knew that they had a rink on campus, was able to see kind of everything they had to offer. And then, I'm honestly, this is like a dream come true to one, be in the same place. We've been apart for 5 years. So to be in the same place, but to work for a department that really cares about its student athletes and how we can benefit our student athletes more here in terms of resources and just the day-to-day what their needs are to get them to the next level. But yeah, really fortunate to be able to kind of one, be a head coach for the first time, and two, do it in a place where where my fiance is, and yeah, all of it is pretty special.
That's awesome. All right. So now I'm curious, did you know ahead of time that Delaware was going to be announcing that they would be getting a D1 program? And did they consult with you in any way?
I didn't. They kept it pretty like tight, and Kelly was good about not really kind of telling me too much, too much more than she needed to. So I mean, I had an idea at certain points, but never really solidified until till it came out.
Okay. All right. And so how did you tell Jeff Campersall, the head coach at Penn State, that it was time for you to move on to bigger opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing with Jeff is he obviously knew that Kelly was here. He's such a family guy, so his whole thing was like you have to go where you're going to be happy. And it was a really hard conversation, honestly, with him, with the team. I I've learned so much here in the last 7 years at Penn State. And so to me it was, it's a hard place to leave because you're surrounded by great people. And the players, that we recruited were just really, really good people, worked really hard. And so all of those things were tough to leave, but I think Jeff also knew I was ready for it. And so he's definitely happy for me, but I'm gonna miss seeing him every day, that's for sure.
Well, you're still going to see him a little bit. So, the U.S. government just ruled that non-compete clauses were illegal in the past few days. So, the Blue Hens are going to be playing in the CHA. So you are going to be competing against Penn State on a regular basis, seeing them at least twice a year. Did Jeff have any concerns about you competing against them right away?
I don't know. He actually made a comment the other night because I was able to make it to the end of the year banquet about just the style of play and me knowing it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's obviously going to come down to what the players do when they get out there. But yeah, I mean, our styles are very similar in terms of just like how we see the game. So I feel like it'll be a pretty, at some point be a pretty evenly matched game.
All right. Well, let's hope that happens sooner than later. All right. Let's get into University of Delaware. When I last checked, there were about 18,000 undergraduate students, so a pretty sizable university based in Newark, Delaware. I had to learn a little geography of actually the shape of Delaware. It was the first time I've been incorporated there, but never actually visit there. So maybe just talk about the school, the academics, and student life at Delaware.
Yeah, yeah, I think to me when I was looking at Delaware, great location in terms of, how accessible it is for train, planes, driving, depending on where you live. But yeah, like you said, 18,000 undergrads, so it's not too big, but it's not too small. It's kind of in that middle of the road university. Great campus. Our athletic footprint is a little bit of a walk to campus from athletics, but everything in athletics is in the same area. So the two ice rinks that we have are right in the athletic footprint, which is awesome. But beautiful campus. I had never been to Delaware until I went with Kelly on our interview last year. So I had never been. I probably drove through it, but didn't know. Obviously a small state that takes a lot of pride like in the university and in what we're doing. So I think that part is really cool, just to be, we're the only school only Division I hockey program, obviously, in the state of Delaware. So I think that's a really special thing to be a part of.
Right, and maybe you mentioned the two rinks. Maybe just talk about the facilities that the women's program is going to have beyond just the on ice stuff.
Yeah. So they're going to build locker rooms and coaching offices. Right now, the locker room space is utilized for the club teams. So there's 3 men's club teams and 1 women's club team. So a lot of hockey presence at the university, which is already great to be a part of. And then we have a center dedicated to all of our student athletes. It's called the Whitney Athletic Center, and it basically houses our nutritionists, sports psych, mental health. Physicians, our weight room is in there, like our big weight room for all the student athletes. We have an academic center on the 2nd floor, and then on that same floor, a training table. So dining hall for the student athletes as well. So it's all right there. When I saw that, I was kind of blown away with just the intentionality of the athletic department to figure out, okay, how can we get student athletes here more often? And then what can we provide for them for them to enjoy their experience here more? So it's great.
I'm just curious, how would they get back and forth between the athletic facilities and campus, given you said that there's a little bit of a distance in between the two?
Yeah, you can walk. There are buses, which will get them right there. Again, it's like a mile, so it's not even that far. But if they wanted to park up where athletics are and take the bus to their classes, they can do that. But yeah, it's all really, really close.
Okay, so let's get to the most important question. Do you know what a blue hen is, and have you ever seen one?
A blue hen is a hen, right?
It
Just a
really
bird.
is. Yeah, so I had to go Google it myself and go check it out. So the University of Delaware adopted the blue hen as its mascot in 1911 before it became the state bird, due to the bird's fierce reputation matching the desired spirit of its students and athletes. So there you go. And you can actually go look at pictures on them. It's more really gray than blue,
Yep.
but
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
it is kind of a vicious chicken, basically, is the way I understand it. So the logo only represents slightly the fierceness. I think it could be even enhanced if you ever got to the point of really wanting a mean bird on your jersey. So we'll see if that ever happens.
Good to know.
So so we talked about being a bit of a whirlwind the last month since the announcement. You had the privilege of dropping the puck at the Philadelphia Flyers game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Maybe just talk about that experience announcing the program to the world.
It was pretty surreal, honestly, and I credit Chrissy Raywalk, our athletic director, for getting this partnership going with the Flyers. They're genuinely excited about working with us, which was awesome to hear in person. But it was amazing just being there. Obviously, like before I went, I was like, oh, this isn't a big deal. And then I got out there, I was like, this is a big deal. And there's a lot of people here and they care about the growth of our game. And obviously with everything going around with the PWHL and just women's sports in general, the excitement around it, I think really elevated, that moment. But it was really cool.
All right, and who won the puck drop?
I believe the Flyers did.
Oh, Sean Couture, yes, and
Yeah.
they did let him win. All right, just want to make sure you're paying attention.
Always will be.
All right. Well, now let's get to the actual team and you putting together a team. I'm wondering where you're at with putting the rest of the coaching staff together.
Yeah, so I can hire 1 assistant July 1, and then next July the 2nd assistant. So yeah, so I'm kind of in the process of, I've gotten some interest, which is great, like from really great candidates. So yeah, just kind of going through that, having conversations in the near future to kind of solidify my thoughts on that. But obviously want a well-rounded group that can help all of our positions. I think goalies are really important in their development to have somebody on staff. So that's going to be a focus of mine. But yeah, some great interest from some really good coaches.
I'm just curious as to what the reason is that you only get one this year and another one next year, because most other schools get 3 assistant coaches. I'm just curious if
Yeah.
that's a financial thing or an NCAA regulation thing.
I don't think it's either, honestly. Just from my experience with knowing other teams that have gone through like building a new program, that's typically what happens is you have one assistant to just kind of help. help you with that first year. Honestly, I can't wait for that because right now I'm like asking myself questions. So to have somebody to bounce those ideas off of is going to be great. But two's a good number. I think we'll be able to tackle a lot in that first year. Just we're going to be on the road a lot. So yeah, and then that's just part of the build. But neither, I don't, to answer your question.
Gotcha. All right. Well, so now, coach, we do get a lot of coaches listening to the podcast too, because I've had them tell me that they listen to hear about other coaches. So maybe now some of them will reach out to you, knowing that there's a couple of opportunities coming up over the next little
Great.
while. All right. So I did have a question about, and you may or may not know the answer to this, is why did the University of Delaware wait until the end of March to make the announcement on the coach from a recruiting perspective? Because it's a little bit late for the class of 2025. Obviously, many of the top players have already committed.
Yep.
And when I've had coaches on before programs have started before, like Tara Watchorn or Jack Sweeney and Logan Biddle, and they all had 2 recruiting cycles, but you only get 1 for your incoming class.
Yeah, I think it's just the timing of it. Honestly, I feel like as an administration, you want the best candidates. So in terms of seasons being over and then being able to hire, it made the most sense in terms of that. But it's interesting right now because recruiting in general, a lot of 25s were already committed prior to, like, no matter when this position was going to be hired, that would have already been the case. And so I do think there's a lot that have been missed and a lot that have developed later. So my goal is to find those, to find those ones that people are like, wow, where's that kid going? So I think that's a really kind of cool thing to find those players and players that obviously want to be a part of a new program.
I gotcha. All right. And so you talked about, style of play, when you refer to you and Jeff having a similar way of doing things. I'm wondering what that's going to be. If I remember correctly, you were a forward, but you were coaching the D at the time that I last spoke to you with Penn State. Now you get to coach, all 3 kind of key positions. What is that style of play, and what kind of players that would you be looking for to fit that style of play?
Yeah, great question. I think, first of all, when I got the job and knowing my background as a player and the team I played for when I was at Niagara, our first year, we had an amazing goaltender. And so I think for a new program, having somebody that can backbone your team, that has the confidence to, to play in big games, because every game's going to be big for our program in the beginning years is really important. I want players that can obviously skate the game, that can think the game in what capacity, where, there's a lot of development that goes into both of those things. But overall, skating ability and understanding of the game are going to be important. And then just defending hard. So, when you have talent, you can rely on that a little bit more. Whereas in the first couple of years, we're just going to be young in a lot of ways. And so making sure we defend the net front first, and then, our offense will take care of itself to a certain extent after that. But, I want players that have fun coming to the rink every day, that want to work hard, that, I'll look for players that come from programs that are successful and have won. I think that's a big piece, like knowing how to win and knowing how to fight through adversity, because we will have that. So, looking for those types of players, and that players that are coachable and team players, that care about their teammates and, want to have the puck on their stick, but also know when to give it away.
Right.
So all of those things I'm looking for.
Gotcha. And so what is your recruiting strategy going to be? Are you just going to go, excuse me, more like Jack Sweeney, where he basically had almost every player at Assumption was basically a freshman with just the odd, non-freshman on the team? Or are you going to, like, especially for goalie, because there's always lots of experienced goalies out there in the transfer portal, are you going to try and get a few players, at different levels of, underclassmen or upperclassmen players?
Yeah, I do think a balance is good if I can do that. Obviously, I think the core group of our team is going to be freshmen, just by sheer numbers. But trying to balance those classes out with with some transfers. And in terms of the goalie position, it's hard to bring in 3 freshmen, right? And have those 3 freshmen go through. So if I really wanna, get the best out of that group, definitely gonna have to look, in the portal to just to balance out those classes. So if we get, a sophomore or junior in, they have 2 years or 3 years and then they're out. And then, we've got our freshman goaltender that, that can compete, but just balance it out. So that's really what I'm looking at. Again, the core of our group is going to be freshmen, and I want that as well because I want players that are excited to be a part of this experience and make their mark, and grow with the program. So those are all important things.
Gotcha. And I know it's a little bit early to be asking you this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, what does success look like in your first year? I believe Stonehill won, I think, somewhere between 18 and 20 games their first year. Assumption won 10 games this year. I'm just curious, what your perspective is. And also Robert Morris, who made their comeback this year,
Yeah.
also had a really good season. They finished kind of in the middle pack of the CHA. So I'm just wondering what your perspective on what success would be.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Like reality, in all reality, we're not going to have the 5th years, right? So I won't be getting graduate students to come and help. So that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. So we're going to have younger players in general. But in terms of success, I think our team needs to base success on what we're doing every day, and how that development is looking. So I don't want to go into it saying this is a set number and we're going to win this many games because I think it sets you up for failure to a certain extent. And we're all like want to win and want to be successful, and that's an easy gauge to determine your success, right? Your wins and losses. But to me, it's like celebrating the little victories. So if we collectively as a team grasp a concept that we're trying to, like, that's a small victory. If we can figure out the D zone early on, then we're in good shape, right? And then making sure we really celebrate the wins, because it's hard to come by, and our league's tough, which I think is helpful to be in the conference that I've coached in for 7 years, so I know what it looks like. So to recruit to that, I can recruit to that. I know what that, I just know what other teams are going to bring in terms of physicality. So kind of went off on a tangent there, but that's really kind of what I think, and what I really want to emphasize are the small victories.
Gotcha. All right. And have you set yourself up for success by planning out the schedule on who you're going to play in your early non-conference games? Like you can go against, like, an Ohio State or Wisconsin and then, get your your first loss out of the way, or you can try and find some weaker teams to play in your first couple of games. I'm curious what your plan is for schedule standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to do a little bit of both, honestly. Obviously it's nice to show success early on so your team feels that confidence. But to also play teams that are really good and know that that's the standard we need to get to. So a balance of both will be great. I've not started. I've had a few conversations, but I'm sure after our convention next week, I'll start to put some pieces together.
All right. Well, I've done a lot of analysis on the strength of different conferences and teams. So if you need any advice, once we're done with this, we can have a little conversation on what I would suggest
I
to
appreciate it.
help you get off to a good start. All right. So I'm going to ask the question everybody wants to know, which is, have you made any offers yet?
I have made a couple offers, which is great. So kind of just seeing what happens with that. But really doing a lot of homework in terms of calling coaches and really getting to know players in terms of, what they're looking for, in a hockey program. And for coaches, asking them a lot about what kind of character, is this student athlete. So, yeah, doing a lot of research right now. and then
Okay.
and having some really good conversations.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, wait till those, people who receive the offers accept the offers and make their announcements. But I'll make sure that we track that as well to see how far along you are in your. Actually, that's kind of my next question: is how big a roster do you want for your first class?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of like a lower number. So 23 would be ideal. Anything over 21 is going to be great because just to have have everyone dress and contribute in some way. So yeah, somewhere between 21 and 23 would be great.
Gotcha. All right. And in terms of, your recruiting process, I know you've been out there. I know you're at nationals. I know you've been very busy the first month already. What is your plan during spring and summer in terms of going out and visiting and scouting players?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate that May is kind of our quiet period where we can't go out and recruit. So looking to have quite a few prospective student athletes on campus and showing them around campus. And then, yeah, the summer will be busy just getting out and trying to get kind of all over the place. Obviously, I think our location's great. Like I mentioned before, we are close to some major airports. So the Philly airport is about 35 minutes away, and then Baltimore is an hour. Um, we're a train ride to New York City. So so going to recruit international players, Canadians, it's easy for them, especially Western Canadians, to get to major airports nearby. And so I think those are benefits to expanding our just where we go recruiting and who we're bringing in.
Okay. And any major camps beyond the country national camps that you're going to be going to that, folks should be aware of, hey, this is where they can see you or you can see
Yeah,
them?
not specific. Not specific. I was trying to get to Sweden. I don't know if I'll make it. I have my wedding coming up, so that's unfortunately that's a tough time. But yeah, I'll be at a lot of the major tournaments. And I imagine like down the stretch, Beantown and those things, Wizards, just to get out east. National camps for sure. Ontario camps and clinics up there. I'll try and be as wherever I can. So, and by that time I'll have another assistant. So the two of us will be out on the road as much as possible.
It's January, no, July 1st is going to be a big day for you, isn't it? When you have the new
Yeah.
assistant coach. All right. So just a couple quick more questions. What do players who are going to be attending kind of these events, what do they need to do to stand out to you and grab your interest?
Yeah, so to me it's like how hard are you working every shift? Um, can I tell like are you getting on the ice as quickly as you're getting off the ice? Vice versa. So what does that look like? And then I watch body language a lot. That's important to me. Obviously with building a new program, you just want everybody to kind of be, good team players and what does that look like? Obviously we can help that. But it is something I look for. Those are probably the big things. I mean, obviously talent, we're going to look for talent and what's going to fit best in our program, but it's more of, your work ethic and your body language that I pay attention to a lot.
Gotcha. All right. So, we got a lot of potential recruits listening to this podcast. I'm just wondering, how do potential recruits let you know that they're interested in becoming a Blue Hen?
Well, my email address is on the website, so they can reach out. Obviously, message through Instagram or other platforms like that. I'll see that. I'll see that. Um, and then there's also a questionnaire on our website for the players to fill out. I think that's really helpful just to get a sense of um, academically where they're at. What tournaments they have coming up this summer. All of that is really helpful. So there's a couple ways to get a hold of me.
First, and I'll remind you, you also have a Champs app profile that people can
Champs
connect with
app.
you.
Yeah.
And so don't forget that one as well. All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Allison, so great to see you. I want to wish you the best of luck with everything, all your crazy summer that you have. So good luck with finding the coaches, for finding players, and obviously congratulations on your wedding. So it's a big summer for you. I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thanks so much, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. See, I really want to thank Allison for coming back on the program. I loved hearing about all her plans for starting the Delaware Blue Hens program. She certainly has a lot of work to do in order to get ready for the 2025 season. You can reach out to Allison on the team website, or you can connect and message her directly using Chance app. Links to both are in the show notes.